Hello, Sip&Talkers, and welcome back. Today, we are going to connect a few dots that might seem pretty far apart at first. We're starting with a massive defense budget.
And we're ending up inside a museum.
Exactly. We are linking Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te's brand new defense plan with a viral video from the Taiwan Judicial Museum.
Yeah, I mean, missiles in museum exhibits, it sounds a little weird, I know. But trust us, when you actually connect them, it kind of reveals this huge philosophical battle happening in that part of the world.
It really does. I mean, everyone knows the tension around Taiwan is, well, it's at an all-time high. And now President Lai is proposing this just unprecedented defense budget.
And everybody is watching. Washington's watching. Taipei is watching. And what's really interesting is that Chinese netizens are watching very, very closely.
But they're not just looking at the military hardware.
No, that's the fascinating part. The real, explosion in conversation over there wasn't about the missiles or the ships. It was about the museum. It sparked this wave of people openly asking, wait a minute, why do they have that and why don't we? That one question is everything.
It really is. It's like the start of an awakening for a lot of people.
Yeah, that video from the Judicial Museum just went viral, and the comments, the bullet screens flying across the video.
Yeah.
They were just relentless.
All focused on these basic rights.
Basic rights. And these really powerful, kind of raw questions started popping up. Why can they protest on the street? Why are they allowed to publicly criticize the government? And then just, why don't we have this?
Those aren't just casual questions. They have so much weight behind them, especially when you think about who's asking. I mean, you're talking about people who've been told their entire lives that protesting and free speech, that's just chaos.
It's instability.
Exactly.
So that's our mission today on Sip and Talk. We're going to unpack that one question. Why do they have what we don't? Because when someone starts asking, why not us? They're really starting to grapple with these huge ideas, people's rights, freedom, dignity, where the government's power should end.
And just to be super clear, our goal here isn't to, wag a finger and say one system is good and one is bad.
Right.
We just want to observe. We want to look at the contradictions that pop up when someone who's grown up in a really controlled information bubble suddenly sees the world without a filter.
So here's the plan. First, we'll get into the big picture. Why is Taiwan spending over $40 billion on defense right now? Then we'll look at the spark. What exactly was in that museum video?
After that, we'll define some of those core ideas. Dignity, freedom, rights in a way that's, easy to get. And then we'll get into the psychology of it all, this mirror effect.
And finally, we'll talk about how this kind of realization can turn from, say, jealousy into something more constructive.
It's a lot to get through, but I promise we'll make it as easy to swallow as your favorite bubble tea.
Oh, please, not the bubble tea analogy again. I'm trying to cut down on sugar.
Okay, fine. But you get the idea. Let's get into it.
Today's topic, why they have what we don't. From Taiwan's defense to China's doubts.
All right, let's start with the hard power, the big numbers. Because this defense spending, it's like they're building this huge tangible shield. Taiwan is proposing a special budget, and it's the biggest in its history.
And when you say biggest, we're talking serious money here. It's NT $1.25 trillion. For us, that's about 40 billion US dollars.
Yeah, 40 billion. And it's not just for 1 year. It's spread out over 8 years, from 2026 to 2033. This isn't just, budget top-up. It's a total overhaul of their entire defense strategy.
So what's the rush? Why now?
The motivation is all about timing. It's a direct response to the CCP's stated goal of being fully ready for a potential invasion by 2027.
Okay, so that date, 2027, is like a giant ticking clock for them.
It's absolutely a ticking clock. So they've broken their plan into 2 phases. Goal number 1 is to be at, peak operational readiness by 2027. Basically, be ready to take the first punch and survive.
And goal 2?
Goal 2, which runs to 2033, is about building a really resilient long-term defense. It's moving beyond just survival to making sure their democracy is permanently secure.
People call this the porcupine strategy, right? Make yourself too painful to attack.
That's the one. The official name for this budget push is the Taiwan Shield Plan. But porcupine really captures the philosophy. They're moving away from buying a few huge expensive things like big ships or fancy jets that are really vulnerable to a surprise attack.
Because they're just sitting ducks.
Exactly. Instead, they're focusing on things that are survivable, mobile, and all networked together.
And you can see that shift in where the money is going. A huge chunk of it, over 300 billion NT, is for building this multi-layered air defense network.
They want to make the sky over Taiwan incredibly dangerous and expensive for any attacker.
So what kind of hardware are we talking about?
It's a mix. They're buying some top-tier stuff from the U.S., and they're also building a lot of their own. From the U.S., you're seeing the big names, Patriot missiles, the PAC-2 and PAC-3 for high-altitude threats.
Okay.
And then two others that are really key to this new strategy, NASAMS and HIMARS.
Let's break those down. NASAMS, that's a missile system, right?
Yeah, National Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile System. It's a medium-range system, but the key is that it's mobile. You can move it around quickly to protect cities or command centers. It's much harder to find and destroy than a fixed missile site.
And HIMARS, we've all seen how effective those have been in other conflicts.
Oh yeah, they are absolute game changers. Highly mobile, truck-mounted rocket launchers. They can fire precision-guided rockets and then just move. Shoot and scoot, they call it. You can't hit what you can't find. It's perfect for a smaller defender trying to wear down a larger attacker.
It's not just about buying American tech. They're also investing in their own stuff.
Massively. Their indigenous missile program, the Tiancong or TK missiles, is getting a huge boost. They're developing the newest versions, which shows they're serious about being self-sufficient in the long run.
Okay, so they're buying the right hardware, but you always say the weapons are only one part of the story.
Because it's true. The most important part of this whole plan, the real leap forward, is what they call the IBCS, the Integrated Battle Command System.
So what is that exactly? What problem does it solve?
Well, the problem is that militaries often have equipment from different eras, different countries, and they don't talk to each other very well. So your Air Force radar might see a threat, but it takes time to get that info to a Navy ship's missile system. Everything's in its own silo.
And in a modern fight, you don't have time.
You have seconds. IBCS is designed to be the central nervous system that connects everything. The Army, Navy, Air Force, all their sensors, all their missile batteries are plugged into one single network.
So a radar picks something up.
And instantly, IBCS knows. It analyzes the threat, figures out the best weapon to use, whether it's a Patriot or a NASAMS or one of their own TK missiles, and it can even assign the target, all without a human having to manually connect the dots.
That cuts the decision time down to almost nothing.
It's a massive advantage. And to make it even smarter, they're plugging in AI. They've set up a whole AI project office to figure out how to use artificial intelligence to coordinate their firepower in a really complex multi-front attack.
So it's not just about buying guns. It's about installing a high-tech brain and nervous system into the entire country's defense.
That's the perfect analogy. And that focus on smart asymmetric defense brings us to the drones. This is probably the most porcupine part of the whole strategy.
The numbers are just wild. They've ordered 50,000 military-grade drones.
50,000 to start, with plans for maybe 50,000 more just to protect critical infrastructure. We could be talking about 100,000 drones.
No.
They know they can't match a bigger power jet for jet or ship for ship, but they can make any advance an absolute nightmare by flooding the area with cheap, expendable, and really hard-to-target drones for surveillance and attack.
And it's also a boost for their own tech industry, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a great example of smart policy. Their drone industry exports just skyrocketed up something like 7.5 times in the first half of 2025.
Yeah.
They're using their defense needs to build up their own economy.
So to sum up this part, the $40 billion is for a smarter, more mobile, and more survivable defense shield, all designed to be ready for that 2027 timeline.
Exactly. That's the physical shield. But now we need to pivot to the defensive values. And the trigger for that was something much, much quieter than a missile launch. It was a museum exhibit.
This is where the story gets so interesting. The thing that caused this huge psychological shockwave wasn't a military drill or a politician's speech. It was a short video clip from inside the Tainan Judicial Museum.
Yeah, and the museum itself is this beautiful old building, originally a courthouse from the Japanese colonial era. But what was in the video that hit so hard?
It was an exhibit, and it was so simple, which I think is why it was so powerful. It was just a list of the rights that are guaranteed to citizens under their constitution.
Not some dense legal text, just here are your rights.
Exactly, and it was the big ones: freedom of speech, freedom of publication.
The right to participate in your government, freedom of assembly.
Freedom of secret communication, so privacy and freedom of religion.
You know, things that people in a lot of countries just take for granted. But seeing them listed out like that as a guarantee, the reaction online was just
explosive. That's the only word for it. The main comment, the one that you saw over and over again in the Blit comments flying across the screen, was just this raw question: why do they have it and why don't we?
That question just cuts through everything. It just slices through decades of official narratives and propaganda.
And the other comments were so emotional, you could feel the shock. People were writing things like, "Is this something you can watch late at night?" Meaning it was so disturbing it kept them awake.
I saw one that said, "This hits harder than a 10,000 yuan fine."
Yeah.
Which, wow. It means the psychological blow of seeing what you don't have is worse than a huge financial penalty.
But the one that really got me, a commenter said, "I'm almost 60 years old, and this is the first time I have ever seen this kind of thing."
Just think about that. You lived for 6 decades, and the basic idea that you have guaranteed rights, that you can gather peacefully, that you can publish your thoughts without censorship, is a completely alien concept until you see it in a viral video.
And the museum itself is a symbol, isn't it? It's not just an old building.
No, it represents Taiwan's own journey. It commemorates their transition away from authoritarianism, away from martial law and the White Terror period. So the exhibit isn't just showing laws on a wall.
It's celebrating the victory of those rights over state oppression.
Precisely. So when these netizens saw that list, they saw evidence that people who share their language and their culture possess these things. And the key word there is possess. They're not gifts from the state that can be taken away. They are a guaranteed possession.
That's the fundamental difference, isn't it? The difference between rights you're born with and privileges the government might let you have if you're good.
It is. And it just exposed this massive gap in lived experience. It wasn't about comparing who has a better economy or a stronger army. It was a comparison of human dignity. And it triggered this collective outpouring of sadness and desire for what they realized they were missing.
The museum became a mirror, and it reflected a truth that the state works very, very hard to keep hidden.
Which means we really need to define what these things are. What is dignity? What is freedom? What are these rights that cause such a powerful reaction?
Right. So if the whole reaction is about a lack of these rights, let's nail down what they actually are. The core idea from things like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is that you have these rights simply because you're human. The government doesn't give them to you.
And we can kind of break them into a couple of categories. First, you have what you could call survival rights. This is the absolute biological baseline.
So the right to life, food, basic healthcare, education.
Exactly. The stuff you need to just keep a population alive and functioning. And this is what a lot of authoritarian states will point to and say, see, we provide for our people. We lifted them out of poverty.
They focus only on that bottom layer.
They do. But one of the sources we looked at put it in a really stark way. It said that if a country only provides these survival rights, it's basically treating its people like animals in a feedlot.
Wow, that's a powerful phrase.
It is. It means you're fed, you're sheltered, you're kept safe, but you have no agency. You're being managed, not governed.
So the next step up is what makes you truly human.
That's where dignity rights come in. This is the human bottom line. The right to be treated with respect, equality, freedom from torture. But the most important part of dignity, especially in this context, is the right to live free from fear.
Freedom from fear of your own government.
Yes. It means you don't have to constantly worry that if you say the wrong thing online, if you criticize a policy, that there's going to be a knock on your door at 2 a.m. Dignity means you have security from the arbitrary power of the state.
If you don't have that, then fear just becomes the default setting for daily life.
And that leads us straight to the idea of freedom. It's so often painted as just chaos, right? As anarchy.
Yeah, if you let people protest, the streets will be on fire.
Exactly. But a simple way to define it is the right to act as an individual or a group without arbitrary government restriction, as long as you're not harming others. Or even simpler, it's the right to not do what you don't want to do. It's protection from state overreach.
Let's talk about the two freedoms from the museum that really seem to land the hardest. Freedom of assembly and freedom of publication.
Yeah, freedom of assembly is like the ultimate street test for a society. It's the right to gather peacefully to protest or make your voice heard.
Because if you can't gather, you're just a collection of isolated individuals. You have no collective power.
Right. And the key difference is in the mechanics. In a place like Taiwan, if you want to hold a protest, you just have to notify the authorities. You don't ask for permission.
And the police's job is?
Their job is to protect the protesters, to make sure they can exercise their rights safely, manage traffic, and keep counter-protesters away. The police are there to guard the right itself.
Even if the protest is against the government they work for.
Especially then. Now, contrast that with a more restrictive system. To assemble, you have to apply for a permit, which is almost always denied under some vague reason like endangering public order. The police are there to prevent the gathering or break it up if it happens.
So what those netizens saw was people in the street demanding accountability and then just going home safely. The shock is realizing that gathering to complain isn't a threat to society, it's only a threat to unchecked power.
Exactly. And then you have freedom of publication. This is the one that protects the world of ideas. It's the right to express your thoughts in books, online, wherever, without the government censoring it first or punishing you for it later.
This feels like the foundation for everything else. If you can't share ideas, you can't organize, you can't criticize.
That's why it's always one of the first things to go.
Yeah.
It ensures that history isn't just what the state says it is. It means you can go to a bookstore and buy a book that's critical of your own country's leaders.
The analogy we talked about before was the flashlight.
Yeah, freedom of publication gives the public a flashlight to shine on the government. And the government can't take the batteries out. Without it, without that free flow of information and criticism, the collective intelligence of a country just starts to degrade.
Because everyone's working with the same limited state-approved information, it's an echo chamber.
And a climate of fear. People become afraid to think, let alone speak. So what that museum exhibit showed them wasn't just a list of things they wanted. It was a list of the tools you need to live a life with dignity.
Okay, so we know the what. Now let's get into the why. Why did seeing these concepts cause such a powerful, contradictory reaction? Let's get into the psychology of it.
This is what we're calling the mirror effect. The shock is so intense because the people they're seeing in Taiwan, they aren't, foreigners in the way a Westerner might be. To many mainland Chinese, they look the same, they speak the same language, they celebrate similar holidays.
So it's like looking in a mirror and seeing a version of yourself that has all these freedoms that you've been told are impossible for you.
Exactly. And it just shatters this myth that has been pushed for decades, the cultural determinism myth.
Which is the idea that, Chinese people aren't suited for democracy, that they prefer order over freedom.
Right. The idea that only a strong single-party government can manage a population that large. But then they look at Taiwan, a prosperous, modern, stable, Chinese-speaking democracy, and that whole argument just evaporates. The mirror isn't showing them something alien, it's showing them something that's been withheld from them.
So the feeling of deprivation isn't just political, it's almost personal. It's the realization that the power to hold your government accountable exists and you just don't have it.
It creates this intense cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
You have the story you've been told your whole life on one side, and this undeniable, visible proof that the story isn't true on the other. And your brain has to try and make sense of that.
Let's walk through some of the logic traps that a netizen would fall into as they try to process this.
Okay, trap number 1, stability versus safety. The official story is that democracies are chaotic. You see protests, strikes, loud arguments, and that's used to justify control as the only way to get stability.
But then they watch a video of a protest in Taiwan. It might look a little chaotic.
It does, but what else did they see? They see the protest ends, and the protesters go home, safely. Nobody disappears. The police were there to protect them, not arrest them.
So they realize the chaos is actually a functioning part of the system. It's a feedback loop.
Precisely. And the stability they have at home starts to look different. Is it stable because everyone is content? Or is it stable because everyone is afraid? They realize their stability is brittle, and it's maintained by fear, not satisfaction.
Okay, what's trap number 2?
Master versus servant. This one is about the language the state uses. The official line is that government officials are public servants.
And the people are the masters of the country.
A lovely idea. But the reality they live every single day is the complete opposite. If you're the master, why are you terrified of the servant? Why do you have to self-censor every single post online for fear that your servant will get angry, ban your account, or worse?
The power dynamic is totally upside down. The servant holds all the power over the supposed master.
And that's a huge mental burden to carry around. This constant, low-level fear that you might say or do the wrong thing and bring the weight of the state down on you, it just crushes your sense of dignity.
Which brings us to trap number 3, which is maybe the most ironic one.
The irony of controlled patriotism. This shows how much the state fears people gathering, no matter what the reason is. Let's say a group of citizens genuinely wants to hold a patriotic rally, maybe protest against some perceived insult from the West.
Something the government would theoretically agree with.
You'd think so, but they still wouldn't be allowed to organize it themselves. All assemblies require a permit, and those permits are almost never granted. Why? Because the state is more afraid of the act of gathering than they are interested in the message.
They want your voice, but they don't trust you with your feet.
That's it perfectly. An organized group of people, any organized group of people outside of party control, is seen as a potential threat. They learned that lesson a long time ago. They want your support, but they want it to be atomized, individual, and completely under their control.
So when the netizens see freedom of assembly on that museum wall, they're not just seeing a legal term. They're seeing the physical manifestation of political power that they are denied.
The museums show them a fundamental difference in the entire power structure. One where the citizen is empowered, and one where the citizen is, by design, disempowered.
Okay, so we have the physical shield and the psychological mirror. The big question is what happens next? What does a person do with that powerful, painful realization? Does it become something destructive or something constructive?
That is the absolute core question. Because when you feel deprived of something you deeply want, the first sort of gut reaction can be destructive jealousy.
This is the crabs in a bucket idea, right? If one crab starts to climb out, the others will pull it back down.
Exactly. That's the bucket pull mentality. It comes out in comments like, let's just unify with them by force, or this idea of, if we can't have these freedoms, then neither should they. Let's drag them back into the mud with us.
But the logic there is so flawed.
It's completely self-defeating. Destroying Taiwan's democracy doesn't give a single person on the mainland more freedom. All it does is extinguish the last major light in the entire Chinese-speaking world. It makes the bucket darker for everyone.
So what's the alternative, the constructive path?
That's the lighthouse effect.
Yeah.
Instead of seeing Taiwan as an enemy to be conquered, you see it as a reference book, a laboratory, a source of inspiration.
A proof of concept.
A proof of concept. Because what Taiwan has proven, beyond any doubt, is that a modern, prosperous society with a Chinese cultural heritage can also be a free, open, democratic society. The two things are not mutually exclusive. The official line that you have to trade freedom for prosperity is shown to be a lie.
They provide a roadmap, in a way. They went through their own period of authoritarian rule and came out the other side.
They did. So if we go back to the mirror analogy one last time, if the reflection you see in the mirror is freer and more dignified, smashing the mirror doesn't make your own face any cleaner.
You have to work on your own face.
You have to focus on cleaning your own face. And so the question has to shift. It can't be, when will we unify Taiwan? The truly constructive, the truly patriotic question is, when will our society be like Taiwan's and allow our own people to live with dignity and without fear?
That reframes the entire debate from one of external conquest to one of internal improvement.
And it gets to the heart of systemic confidence. I mean, if your system of government is truly superior, why are you so afraid of criticism? Why does a critical book or a few dozen people protesting on a street corner seem like an existential threat?
Real strength doesn't need to silence dissent. It should be able to withstand it, maybe even learn from it.
True strength welcomes it. A system that is so brittle that it can't handle a single dissenting voice is, by definition, a weak and insecure system.
So the final thought, really, is for anyone listening who might feel that shock of recognition.
Yeah, the feeling of envy when you see that museum display, that's a normal human reaction. It's a sign that, deep down, that freedom isn't some Western luxury. It's a fundamental human right. And true patriotism isn't about wanting to conquer your neighbors. It's about wanting your own people, your own compatriots, to live with the greatest possible dignity.
Don't try to put out the lighthouse. Use its light to find your own way.
A perfect summary. We started with the $40 billion hard shield, and we ended with the defense of these soft but incredibly powerful human values.
Yeah.
Both are what's at stake right now.
Wow. This has been a really, really insightful conversation. Now, before we wrap up, we want to leave you with one final provocative thought for the week.
And it's a simple one to think about. If your government truly loved you, would they allow you to criticize them?
Just something to mull over. We really hope this deep dive gave you some new ways to think about this incredibly complex issue.
As always, thank you so much for joining us for this Sip and Talk.
And hey, before you go, please make sure you subscribe to our show, the Sip and Talk podcast.
You absolutely have to go check out our old friend Mickey's YouTube channel. It's called Mickytolife. He's got fun memes, great liquor tastings, and some amazing travel vlogs.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.